Dozens of nuclear weapons rest silently on the ocean floor, their presence not only a historical enigma, but also a ticking time bomb of potential disaster. Let's journey back to 1970, to the depths of international waters off the coast of Spain. A Soviet nuclear submarine, codenamed K-8, lurked beneath the waves, executing a covert mission. On April 8th, K-8 reached its designated position and commenced exercises, severing all radio communications and entering combat mode. The submarine's tranquility was suddenly shattered by blaring alarms as a fire erupted in the sonar compartment. The blaze quickly spiraled out of control, advancing menacingly towards the nuclear reactor. What had begun as a mere exercise instantaneously morphed into a terrifying nuclear crisis. The inferno swiftly spread to the reactor's outpost, prompting the nuclear plant team to make a split-second decision to lock the doors. Yet, the crisis was far from over. Carbon monoxide from the fire rapidly permeated the entire submarine, even seeping into the command center. To make matters worse, the blaze had destroyed all onboard communication systems, leaving K-8 completely cut off from the outside world. It wasn't until a day later that the Soviet Navy headquarters finally received word of K-8's dire situation. They immediately dispatched a nearby rescue ship to the incident site. The rescue vessel bore an uncanny resemblance to an American reconnaissance ship, causing the cautious K-8 crew to reject the offered assistance. Meanwhile, the sea conditions were deteriorating rapidly, and K-8 was swiftly losing buoyancy. Ultimately, at 6 a.m. on April 12th, K-8 vanished completely from the rescue ship's radar. As the submarine sank to the ocean floor, 2 nuclear torpedoes were eternally consigned to their watery grave. To maintain national image and military secrecy, the Soviet military swiftly suppressed all related information. This heart-stopping story remained hidden from the public eye until 1991. To this day, those 2 nuclear torpedoes continue to lie silently 4,680 meters below the surface off the Spanish coast. However, this wasn't the only instance of nuclear weapons being lost to the depths. Let's turn back the clock to 1968 in the North Pacific. At that time, an American submarine was carrying out a routine patrol mission. Suddenly, the submarine's sonar picked up an unusual sound, frantic screams from Soviet personnel over the radio. To their astonishment, the American submarine discovered that the Soviets had deployed a massive fleet. 2 destroyers, 3 frigates, and dozens of other vessels, all engaged in a large-scale search operation on the surface. In the sky above, Soviet reconnaissance planes circled incessantly. This search continued for weeks, with the Soviets refusing to give up even in the face of severe weather conditions, including Force 9 winds at sea. Why were they so persistent? This mystery remained unsolved until 6 years later, when the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency finally cracked the puzzle. It turned out that the Soviets had lost a nuclear submarine, K-129, carrying secret weapons. This discovery sent waves of excitement through the CIA. They decided to covertly salvage the submarine, sparing no expense and investing a staggering $500 million in the operation. This sum was enough to build 2 aircraft carriers or send another Apollo mission to the moon. Such an enormous investment undoubtedly indicated that K-129 must have been carrying some extremely important weaponry. First, CIA experts performed a series of complex calculations to pinpoint K-129's exact location. Then they secretly modified a salvage ship. This seemingly ordinary exploration vessel concealed a massive salvage vehicle equipped with metal claws and a specially designed salvage shelter within its hull. However, despite such thorough preparations, the CIA's salvage plan ultimately ended in failure. They only managed to recover a small portion of K-129. 30 years later, in 2005, this secret salvage operation was finally exposed. By then, the Soviet Union had dissolved, transforming into Russia. When the Russians learned of this story, they were equally shocked. K-129 had been carrying hydrogen bombs capable of reaching the entire North Pacific, as well as 2 nuclear torpedoes. Even more alarming was the revelation that during the CIA's salvage operation, one of the hydrogen bombs had come dangerously close to accidental detonation. Historically, 2 American nuclear submarines have been sunk, while the Soviet Union lost 5 to similar fates. All 7 of these submarines were carrying nuclear weapons, and their exact whereabouts remain unknown to this day. Looking back at the Cold War era, the United States faced a severe strategic dilemma. At the time, America's missile range was limited, unable to directly threaten Soviet territory, while Soviet missiles could easily cover the entire United States. Faced with this disadvantageous situation, the U.S. military had to think outside the box, leading to the development of a strategy known as Operation Chrome Dome. The core of this plan involved bombers continuously patrolling the perimeter of the Soviet Union, always carrying hydrogen bombs. If the US were to suffer a nuclear strike from the Soviets, these planes would immediately fly towards the USSR with their hydrogen bombs. To ensure deterrence, these hydrogen bombs were designed to have devastating destructive power, truly doomsday-level weapons. Their total weight reached 1.1 million tons, equivalent to 100 times the power of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. However, this seemingly perfect plan frequently encountered accidents during implementation, resulting in multiple incidents of lost nuclear weapons. Perhaps the most jaw-dropping of these occurred on January 21, 1968, in the skies over Greenland. On that day, a B-52 bomber was carrying out a routine mission flying over Greenland. Suddenly, one crew member, unable to bear the cold, stuffed a cushion into the heating duct for warmth. The cushion quickly caught fire, forcing the crew to make an emergency parachute jump, leaving the pilotless aircraft to continue gliding through the air. The pilots fortunately landed not far from a U.S. Air Force base, contacting the base commander within just 10 minutes. A few minutes later, the plane crashed. Fortunately, the hydrogen bombs did not explode, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But a new problem arose: how to recover these 4 incredibly powerful hydrogen bombs. Reconnaissance planes flew over the crash site and discovered that the ice was melting, clearly indicating a serious nuclear leak had occurred. For 3 of the 4 hydrogen bombs, they had become what are known as dirty bombs, nuclear weapons that haven't exploded but have released large amounts of radiation. The site had essentially become a miniature Chernobyl. After the accident, search and rescue personnel only found 6 engines, 1 tire, and countless fragments. Other items that sank beneath the ice cap, including those incredibly powerful nuclear bombs, seemed to have vanished forever. Experts at the time predicted that one of the 4 hydrogen bombs might be intact and hadn't turned into a dirty bomb. They believed that the chances of this hydrogen bomb being accidentally detonated by nature in the future were slim. Based on this assessment, the U.S. military prepared to gradually and quietly make this big problem disappear, letting these dangerous items submerged under Greenland's ice sheet vanish from people's sight forever. Greenland belongs to Denmark, and when the Danish government discovered this incident, they were thoroughly enraged. The Danes lodged a strong protest and demand for compensation to the United States. They insisted that the U.S. make every effort to remove this mini Chernobyl from Greenland as soon as possible. For the contaminated ice and water, the Danish side demanded that the U.S. transport it all back to their homeland for processing. The truth of this incident remains controversial to this day. The U.S. officially claims that except for a small part of the hydrogen bombs, all other debris has been successfully salvaged and returned to the United States. But Danish media reports contradict this, insisting that at least 1 complete hydrogen bomb still remains buried under Greenland's ice sheet. In March 2009, Time magazine published a ranking of the world's most severe nuclear accidents. Surprisingly, topping the list was neither the well-known Chernobyl disaster nor the Tokaimura nuclear accident in Japan, but this little-known Greenland hydrogen bomb incident. In 1968, the United States terminated Operation Chrome Dome, which had been implemented for 8 years. The reason was simple. During the implementation of the plan, too many nuclear weapons had been accidentally dropped into the sea. Just 2 years earlier, in 1966, another similar accident had already occurred. Again, it involved a B-52 bomber, again part of Operation Chrome Dome, and again involved 7 pilots and 4 doomsday-level hydrogen bombs. The difference was that this accident occurred over the Mediterranean Sea, rather than Greenland. At the time, the aircraft executing the Mediterranean route mission needed to refuel in mid-air. However, during the refueling process, strong winds caused the B-52 bomber to collide with the tanker. The refueling pipe severed one of the B-52's wings, and the tanker instantly turned into a massive fireball. Soon after, the B-52 also lost control and began to fall. Before parachuting, the last action the pilots took was to release 4 hydrogen bombs. The plane disintegrated in mid-air after crashing, and only 4 of the 7 pilots successfully ejected. But before they landed, they saw an explosion in the distance, realizing that a more serious problem might have occurred. They feared that the 4 hydrogen bombs they had just dropped hadn't fallen into the sea as expected, but had instead landed on Spanish soil. As it turned out, the pilots' concerns were correct. Soon, 2 nuclear bombs that had turned into dirty bombs were discovered on a farm in Spain. A day later, the 3rd hydrogen bomb was found in the outskirts of Palomares, a small inhabited town. Fortunately, this hydrogen bomb remained intact and hadn't leaked. However, the whereabouts of the 4th hydrogen bomb became a huge mystery. The U.S. military immediately launched a large-scale search operation, mobilizing 12,000 soldiers and dozens of ships to thoroughly search the entire area. However, after 3 months of relentless efforts, they still couldn't find any clues. People began to speculate that this nuclear bomb might have fallen into the sea. The Spanish government was very dissatisfied with this situation. They made stern demands to the United States. You must remove all those tens of thousands of barrels of contaminated soil. If you can't find the fourth nuclear bomb, you'll have to pay us compensation every year. Faced with such pressure, the United States promised that they would definitely find the missing nuclear bomb. Just when everyone had lost hope of finding the fourth hydrogen bomb, an inconspicuous mathematician became the key to turning the situation around. This mathematician named Craven used a statistical method called Bayesian inference. Through complex calculations, he estimated the possible location of the fourth hydrogen bomb. The U.S. military searched according to his calculations and indeed found the missing nuclear bomb. 2 years later, in 1968, another American nuclear submarine went missing near the Spanish coast, carrying 2 nuclear reactors and 2 nuclear torpedoes. Craven was summoned again, and once more he accurately calculated the submarine's position. However, this time, the U.S. government's reaction was unexpected. After sending people to inspect the site, they quickly left, leaving behind 2 intriguing statements. First, the sea is very suitable for preserving these things. Second, the salvage cost is too high, so we've decided not to proceed. This decision raised many questions. Why did the U.S. government choose to abandon the salvage this time? Were there other undisclosed considerations? In waters not far from China, there's another worrying, sleeping hydrogen bomb. This story took place on an American aircraft carrier that was cruising near the Philippine coast, preparing to head to Japan for a mission. During this time, they also planned to conduct live fire exercises. An A-4 fighter jet loaded with a hydrogen bomb with a total mass of 1 million tons took off from the carrier. Unfortunately, the plane crashed into the sea, and the bomb sank to the bottom. What happened next is hard to believe. The U.S. military didn't immediately launch a salvage operation. Instead, they chose to continue with their exercises, sailing on as if nothing had happened. They carried the secret of the lost nuclear bomb all the way to Japan. It wasn't until 1989 that this shocking secret was accidentally discovered by the Japanese side. Japanese diplomats immediately questioned the U.S. Department of Defense, demanding more details. Under pressure, the U.S. Department of Defense had to admit that they had indeed lost a hydrogen bomb that day, with a power equivalent to 100 Hiroshima atomic bombs. They tried to reassure the Japanese side, claiming that this nuclear bomb wouldn't explode, and stating that it was roughly located in waters about 800 kilometers from the Japanese coast. What happened next further deepened people's doubts about the U.S. military's ability to handle nuclear weapon matters. There was a serious communication problem between the U.S. Navy and the Department of Defense, and the announcements they separately issued to the Japanese side about the location of the nuclear bomb were completely inconsistent. The Navy claimed the bomb was about 130 kilometers from the Ryukyu Islands, which was vastly different from the information previously provided by the Department of Defense. The Japanese couldn't help but ask, if they can't even accurately determine the location of a nuclear bomb, does the U.S. have the ability to properly handle such a potential disaster? This uncertainty undoubtedly intensified the panic and unease among the Japanese public. The famous monster movie Godzilla is believed to have been inspired by this incident. In the film, Godzilla is a giant monster lurking at the bottom of the sea, feeding on nuclear radiation. The more the Earth is polluted by nuclear waste, the stronger Godzilla becomes. One day, it will rise from the sea to take revenge on the humans who caused the nuclear pollution. However, reality is crueler than the story of Godzilla. In 1997, a shocking event occurred near the Falkland Islands off Argentina. Within just 72 hours, 300 whales committed mass suicide. They frantically rushed ashore, eventually dying under the scorching sun. This large-scale whale beaching event remains an unsolved mystery to this day, with scientists offering various explanations for its cause. Some have suggested that it might have been due to a solar flare disrupting the whales' biological navigation systems, causing them to lose direction and mistakenly enter shallow waters. Another more disturbing explanation points to those nuclear weapons sleeping on the ocean floor. Some experts believe that even a small leak or self-detonation of submarine nuclear bombs could have catastrophic effects on marine life. This perspective raises a thought-provoking possibility. Even if these submarine nuclear weapons were to explode, humans might not feel it. There would be no tsunami, no earthquake, and even the nuclear radiation would be diluted by seawater to levels difficult to detect. But for deep-sea creatures, the situation would be entirely different. They might lose their sense of direction, fall into chaos, and ultimately commit mass suicide like those whales. The cruelest fact is that whales, being mammals, don't immediately suffocate when they beach themselves. In such situations, the most humane thing humans can do might be to use explosives to detonate precisely above their heads, giving them a quick release. This heart-wrenching scenario forces us to contemplate how far-reaching is our impact on marine ecology. Are those nuclear weapons we've forgotten on the ocean floor changing the balance of marine ecology in ways we can't perceive? This heartbreaking story makes us ponder. In our pursuit of military power, have we neglected the protection of Earth's ecosystems?